Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and today we're going to talk about nib for Stylus. Now, nib is an additional library that you can add into Stylus that gives you a whole bunch of extra features. It could be considered sort of like a bourbon or compass if you're used to using Sass for Stylus, and it's a package that's extremely popular. So let's check out what makes nib so popular and all of the different utilities that come baked in. So in the last video we installed nib and got going by importing everything, and we showed you this gradient mixin. Now, as you can see, it's really just giving us our browser prefixes to this stuff, but these mixins go a little bit more in depth. To get a good idea of all of the things that nib has to offer, you can go ahead and go to tj.github.io/nib. And I'm actually going to link this in the description so you can have a link to that and check out this page where it has the complete documentation for nib about everything that comes with it. Well, that seems like it's really just some CSS property stuff, CSS3 browser prefix stuff. However, what kind of cool mixins does nib come with? Well, one of the coolest ones, and I think it's the coolest because I use this all the time, is that we have mixins called fixed, absolute, and relative. So instead of saying position fixed and then having to give it a position, you can declare all that in one mixin. So you can simply say fixed and then pass it a value. If we were to just say something like top left and save, you can see we get position fixed, top 0, left 0. So it's going to put it right in the top left and it's going to position it fixed. In fact, if we were to say absolute instead of fixed here, we get the same thing, position absolute, top left. Well, you might be wondering, let me change this back to fixed, and that also works for relative too. So let's just say we want to actually give it a pixel value here because, I mean, how many times you're going to want something to be at 0, 0, top left, top right? Maybe it's usually like, let's say 20 pixels in or something like that, or maybe even a couple percentage points in. What we can actually do is pass this values, so we could say something like top 20 pixels, left 20 pixels, just like that. And you can see instantly we get this position fixed, top 20, left 20. And in fact, that's going to work with anything, like if we're say, yeah, this is going to be 2% from the left, then it certainly works that way as well. And keep in mind that the first value here is always going to be top or bottom. The second is always going to be left or right. So as long as you remember that, top, bottom, left, right, this mixin is going to be awesome for you. It's a one-liner that outputs 3 lines that you're used to have to typing fully like this. And it's something that I said I use all the time. Another mixin that we have is a ClearFixed mixin. Now we created our own CF mixin. However, let's go ahead and just get rid of it. Let's just completely delete it. There we go, we cut down on some of our mixins, and in this CF here, we can change this to ClearFixed, just like that. Now ours actually had a more concise name than ClearFixed, but this one's more descriptive and it tells you what it does. So we now have a working ClearFixed and we didn't have to make it ourselves. Now there's also some nice little helpers, like let's say we were to have a link in our main text and we wanted to have the overflow property with ellipses so that once it's wider than a certain width, it's going to give us the ... on the text. We could always use this overflow and then ellipsis. Now, this isn't an actual CSS property, overflow ellipsis. However, you'll see what we get is text overflow ellipsis, we get overflow hidden, and white space no wrap. So again, it's essentially 3 lines for the cost of 1 line, and those are the mixins that I really like, things that you would typically have to type or memorize and type several lines when you can just type one quick expressive line and have it take care of all of that for you. Now, there's also additional things like functions that bring in resets. So if you're familiar with Eric Meyer's reset, you could say reset and then -HTML5 and then parentheses and save. And now that quick, it took 1 second, we now have the Eric Meyer CSS reset at the top of our page here. Or if normalize is more of your flavor, if you've used resets or normalize, I personally use the normalize package instead of the reset. You can use that simply by normalize-html5, save it, and here we have all the stuff is getting display block, we have audio canvas, we have audio not, that sort of stuff, and we can also have, that's just for normalize for HTML5 elements. Let's say we want the rest of it, we can give normalize base. That's going to give us a whole bunch more, like HTML font family size adjust, body margin 0, that kind of stuff, the stuff that we're used to having. And you can get all of the different, whether it's normalized links, normalized text, that sort of stuff. And you can use any of those in which you would like to use. Now, some more shorthand things are things like a border. So instead of saying border solid 1 pix color, we would simply just be able to say border at color, or just simply our color. And if we scroll down here and look for that border output, it's giving us the solid in 1 pix. So often you're just wanting to specify a border and you have to type, the width and the type when more often than not, you're using a solid border. So this is going to take care of a couple of those lines of code for you. We could also use some interesting things like they have this shadow stroke, which is actually giving a stroke around your text using text shadow. So we could use the function shadow -stroke and then give it a color. We can use blue, we can save this, and this is going to, let's scroll down our CSS to see the result. And this is giving us several text shadows positioned differently at -1, -1, 1, -1, -1, 1, and 1, 1. So it's essentially going to create an outline around of our text that's not fuzzy or anything, just using text shadow. And like you've already seen, there's a whole host, an entire list down here of miscellaneous properties, which are essentially CSS3 things like box sizing or backface visibility, opacity, transition. And these are going to be transparent mixins that give you the browser prefixes that you're looking for. So I would claw around this tj.github.io for nib, and it seems like this documentation isn't as in depth as this one on GitHub. So if you want to see truly completely up to date, it's really not that different, to be honest. But if you want to see the latest docs, I found under the GitHub page, github.com/tj/nib, this docs folder, and that will take you to this page, which I will actually also include in the comments, where you'll have a whole set of docs that look very similar, just slightly different. Cool. So this is nib for Stylus. It's something that I would probably use on every project because the cost to entry is so low. It's not really going to affect your compile times or anything like that. You saw how fast it was. And it's just really easy to drop into your project and have all those really useful utilities. And half of them don't even get in the way. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment in the video or hit us up at Twitter or Facebook at Level Up Tuts. We love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.